Good morning. How's everyone doing? Yeah, it should. If only. Alright. So we're above our 30-second opening range, but POC is shifted. Got a little bit of a node above us here at our 420 on ES. There's a decent chance that we might need to rotate back down here to like 390 if we don't find a bid here at 400. It's pretty important that we find this low if we're going to hold, or flipping could easily happen. Keeping an eye on this. Things I'm concerned about is that ES and NQ have both rejected our 15-minute VWAPs off of Globex on our push above after our gap down. So that could be...
So the earlier headline, US targets Iraqi tycoon in latest move against Iran oil exports.
So that could be an issue, or in our first sign that we would like to continue down. If we continue to not be able to show any interest over, let's say, like 260 on NQ is our first like hint. This 260 area here. I'm just gonna mark that. And let's say this like 430 on ES is like our pivots. Yeah, so let's just keep an eye on these areas. Yeah, I mean, this just looks like balance for right now. There's not much we can talk about, but we can keep an eye on these areas above. Right, so this is our big old pivot here on NQ. Just watch this area, see if we can get above. Then let's watch this area here on ES and see if we can get over that. We can start to build above this this VWAP on the 15. I'm going to be a bit more bullish for the gap fill. I think that makes a lot of sense. But if we can't show any interest above, right, like that's just a good sign that there's someone pretty like willing to sell passively into that, and that we are going to want to continue down. But the general rule, my general rule is always that if we're trading above our 30-second opening range, there's no reason to be expecting like downside expansion. I will just be looking at that as kind of our low of our basing, and we will continue to just rotate that with a slight upside bias until that flips as our offer. So there's no reason yet to be like overly bearish, because we are still trading above our 30-second opening range, but it is something to keep in mind, right? So again, this is our 30-second opening range low. We can mark that as well. The first thing you want to do when you get on is always just like get your bearings. And that is our bearing right there. So ES is trading above our 30-second opening range. And we've got our pivot above, which is our 15-minute VWAP, and this supply from earlier where the seller stepped in for a secondary leg down, right? So that's what we know. That's the information we know, is that we have multiple sellers who have stepped in today. We have a seller above here at this 470, right? We had a secondary seller step in here at this 445. And then we had a third seller step in here at this 430, 425. So these are like my three areas where I'm going to be watching on the way back up, of where we've kind of seen sellers step in for secondary legs, right? So we have the a drop, and then a basing, and then a drop, and then a basing. So this is all super easy to kind of find our pivots, right? We have this basing here where we go sideways. We have a drop. We have a basing again where we consolidate, and then we drop again. And now what we're doing is we're trying to build back above, right? So what we're retesting into our basing from before, right? So this is our pivot here at the bottom of this basing, and I need to see if we can get above this and then rotate through this back into this previous basing. And if we can, right, like that's means that we can then look up to at least 45s from our 425, which would give us a nice little range to play around. And if we could get over this, then we'd be able to then look up into our previous basing, right? So we have pivots of where we need to be able to push through if we're going to go higher, or we should expect that if this continues to fail, right, this will just become another basing before we get another drop. And then we'd just be looking for this to flip our 30-second opening range and then continue down lower. So we're just going to wait and see. But as long as we understand where the previous basing occurred, we can look to that as where we should be expecting our seller to be and what kind of action we should be expecting. Does that make sense? Are we on the same page, or is that a bit confusing? Yes, that makes sense, or yes, that was confusing? Okay. What's up, Bayo? And it's a pretty similar logic on NQ. I'm just gonna go full screen on this real quick. So you can see that we have our Globex VWAP on as well, and that for a really long time during Globex, we were just kind of rotating between our first deviation on our band here on our VWAP. We were just rotating in this structure for quite some time. And then when we started to hold VWAP as resistance after we were doing this sideways movement, and then ever since we started to hold that VWAP as resistance, that became our high, and then we started to trade in a much more bearish trend following our lower distribution, right, into our lower band. So now that we have rotated back, this trend has ceased, right? We are no longer just holding this lower band of our VWAP deviations. We have rotated back to our mid. So we've done a full reversion to our mid band, the purple line, that is VWAP. And we're watching to see if that's going to continue to hold as resistance, just like it did above here on the shift of our trend from the sideways action to a much more bearish action. So we have two choices right now, which is we consolidate sideways here, like so, or we'll flip this and then we'll rotate up to this upper band, right? And then we'll figure out if this will then go supportive, and then we rotate into this upper structure, back up into this footprint supply, right? These stacked imbalances up here. And that'll give us an upside leg, right? Giving us a upside trend. Or, right, we'll consolidate here, and then we'll continue downwards. So we'll see what happens, but structurally, we have it blocked out. We have an understanding of what we're doing, why we're here, etc., etc. And as long as we are holding this VWAP as resistance, we can expect that this is a bear flag for a continuation down if we continue to fail to push above this. If we can start to show interest over this like 260, 290 area, then we have a lot of potential to rotate back up to this consolidation that we did in Globex.
European real estate stocks extend losses down 3.1% on track for the biggest daily decline since April 9th.
But if this continues to fail and we look back below, then we have a lot of potential for this rotation downward. So that's the plan that I see for right now, just playing around these areas. And then we'll see if anything changes. But yeah, again, we've got to show interest above these areas on both ES and NQ for me to really care. Or I just expect more of the same. Let's mark our 30-second opening range here on NQ as well, just so we have it. And on Russell as well.
Europe bond sales top 49.6 billion euros in record-breaking day.
All right, and that should be your first full rotation from our highs at 260 that we talked about. Now rotating down to our 180 here on NQ. We'll watch to see if we can get further downside or if this is going to hold as our low for right now. I think this is a great first risk off if you are playing zone to zone with VWAP being our resistance from above. And now let's see if we can flip this low pivot or if we hold here, right? But we should expecting a little bit of a bounce here at 180. And then we look for a lower high reoffer so that we don't have to rotate the full range up. That would be the idea here, is that we expect to see a bit of a reaction here into this low, unless something crazy changes where like we just completely invalidate this area. But this should be expected for a little bit of bounce, and then we watch to see if we can get like a lower high, and then if we can offer through, that would allow us to then get this continuation down, right, on a flip of this back to our 30-second opening range. From here, we should then expect a bit of a bounce until this flips as offer. So let's see where these sellers hold us. Just looking at our volume profile here on the side, it makes sense that we see a potential seller step in here at one of these two pivots. It's like 208 or 226 area makes sense to me. This would be like your most bearish response here, is this sweeper that we just saw push us down, holds offer, and then we continue to push down. Basically just keeping an eye on this area here to see if we get a lower offer. Yeah, so offer still holding so far. Russell flipping our pivot, interesting. Or sorry, not ES flipping our pivot. So this is a much more bearish response.
The Europe spot market
NQ
is set to notch a record day of issuance as the UK and Italy offer jumbo deals kickstarting a September rush for funding after a summer lull. There are 28 issuers looking to raise at least 49.6 billion euros or $57.7 billion, according to data. That puts Europe on track to beat the previous record day, a one-day total of 47.6 billion euros set earlier this year, seeing spot gold extending gains last up 1% to hit a record high.
I think we need a bit better of a reoffer here on NQ personally, but if ES continues to show weakness, NQ might be able to do the move without pushing down. But I don't have a ton of faith in it. I'd like to see a bit of a higher reoffer personally. Like 220 would be great. But I mean, if sell side wants to hold us here at 180, that's incredibly bearish, and then we can expect downside. But I need to see a bit more of a sweeper to step in for me to feel comfortable playing it. If we flip 150s, then again, we could see a potential secondary leg, but I think that this area between 150 and 180 has a lot of bounce potential, so I'm just going to be waiting. Either for a pushback into like 220 for offer, or a flip below 150 and then hold for secondary leg down. This is ES into our 30-second opening range. Russell holding VWAP as resistance right now, but into our PVC value. So again, just waiting to see what happens. A little too slow for me as of yet. Liquidity resting at 150 here. See if we can hold this edge as offer. We should expect like 50 points down to 100 on NQ. If the bid is able to hold here, should at least look for a reoffer into 180. So just a waiting game here, watching to see if this 150, 160 can hold offer. If it can, again, should expect a rotation to 100 here. This is your most bearish response, is if we can hold here. Mm. Need to get back below 150 here for this to have merit, or we expect the bid to try to now flip that and rotate us back up to 180 before we can go lower. So super important to see if bids can now hold 150 or if offer flips it again. If it can, then continuation down to 100 makes sense. If this holds, then we should expect this 150 to rotate up to 180 before we can continue lower. So it's just watching this pivot to see which way we need to go. We want to see secondary sellers step back in. Or again, like what we're looking at is a look below and then a higher low and then a rotation back up to this node. And then we'll make a decision where this goes down or this flips is supportive for balance rotations back up to here. So we want our seller to be as telling as possible here at this red zone. And then this look below, we want it to hold pretty clearly here at this 150. And then we want to see this rotation down into our lower structure. ES has already done this full move. We're just watching on, waiting for NQ to figure out what it wants to do. Right. This is the ES move where we flip our pivot and then we rotate down to target. Right. This is this move here on NQ. We just haven't gotten that yet. It's lagging comparatively. Minute 20 until new 15s should get a decision then. Sell side just trying to build out this offer here from 150 to 165. We need to see offer flip below 150 and hold for lower high, and then we can rotate down 50 points to 100. If 150 continues to fail to be a lower offer, right, and the bid steps in there, then rotating up to 180 first makes sense. So just waiting to see how this area finishes out. If 180 flips to supportive, then it'll be a rotation back up to 220 before we can continue to go down. So all we're trying to do right now is trying to lower our offer. That is it. And watching to see how we develop out. You can see that POC is attempting to shift down here. And the logic of what I'm talking about is adding up as this is developing. With our POC shift, you can see that if buyers are able to build out this node, which they're attempting to do right now, right? This node, we can see that POC is shifted from here. It is now attempting to shift here, right? So what we need to see is sell side being able to hold this low, get us below this, hold that as
US Treasury
offer,
is to
and then
auction
rotate us
$100
down.
billion into 4-week bills.
If we fail to do that, right, and this holds as supportive instead, and we're able
So
to
the
flip
US is looking to
this,
sell
then it'll
$100
be a
billion
rotation
4-week
back
bills
up
on September
to
4th
here,
to settle on September 9th.
and we will then fill this structure. So it's just a waiting game as this new 15 opens, if this can hold or if this fails. Again, very clear that we need to see the offer flip below 150 for downside continuation. And right now, this is a very neutral zone as we figure it out. Remember, we've already labeled this as potential where we'll rotate in our balance. This gray box here from yellow zone to red zone. So we need to see a very clear flip of this if we're going to continue downward. See what happens here into our 180. This is where I expect either sellers to reload the boat. The reason why we can think that is that this is where our last seller was here, the 180. And we're now watching to see if we can flip above this, doing our like bullish path back up to 220. Or if this holds and then we look back below 150, allowing us to go down, right? This is this pathing right here. So it's just a waiting game as we rotate between 150 and 180, watching to see which side we can hold on this pivot. Does our 180 hold or does our 150 hold? Again, we are just balanced between 150 and 180. We need to see our offer flip below 150 and then hold this for this rotation down. Yeah. Testing now. See if this offer can flip it. I'm just really want to like make sure that you understand like this is this move here, right? This is the flip below, the bid, rotation back up to 180. And now what we're looking for is our offer to be able to sustain below if possible, right? This leads to the downside leg. The only way we look up is if this 180 flips as supportive from this move. Then we look back up to 220 before we can continue downward. So this is where we watch for our offer now. Same as before. I'm taking my first risk off here into 125. Being in push below 125, should expect another 25 points down into our 100 target. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. 150 holding offer again, rotating down to 125 first target. If we can flip 125, should rotate down to 100. Just watching our bid here at 2025. Very clearly someone trying to absorb into 120, 125. Again, if we can flip below this, should just be a rotation down to this 23, 100, 2380 area. But 25 points right now off of our 150 to 125. Again, just watching to see if we can flip or if this is going to hold. Downtrend persisting. So no reason not to expect the rotation for the full rotation back down to 30-second opening range, but just need to be aware of this guy who's taken in size here from our first risk off. 40 seconds until new 15s. New 15s have opened, opening below POC of last candle. Note that POC is sitting here at this like 138,
bids
and
for
our
6 month
value
bills
high
total
is sitting
$1.5
here at
billion.
our 150.
And Fed bids for 3 month bills total $1.7 billion.
You might be asking, what does that mean? How does that help me? What we're watching for is, can price maintain below this POC to value low for a lower high off of the new 15-minute candle, right? That's all I mean by that. So like we've gotten our look above, we've gotten our failure at 150, and now we've gotten our look below. We're opening below this POC. So as long as this 138, 150 is holding, and we're not seeing any look above, then we can expect that this is going to continue to rotate down with these lower highs intact, right? That's all that means. Hopefully that is clear. This is secondary target here on ES into our 30-second opening range low at 389. If we can flip this, it's a good sign that we want to get some continuation down. Again, this is our 30-second opening range low and our ETH low. If this can flip offer and we can start to show interest here at 389, should be targeting our value low here into like 383, 382. Just watching this area below as next target. This is target here on NQ. I am 90% risked off at this point from our 150. Now into target here at 23,100. Imagine that. 50 points. There's our move. Now, if we can flip below this, right, then we can look for our rotation through our 30-second opening range. But this is a very neutral area to me until we can push below this pivot here at 048 to 075. I will not be looking for a huge amount of downside, right? We have the ability to kind of rotate in between here, potentially catch people off sides, rotate back up, right? Just there's a lot of room here to kind of rotate back and forth. So until we can actually flip this, I'm not expecting a huge amount of continuation, which is why we've risked off a lot of our position here into our 100 target, understanding where we are trading. We were able to hold our POC from previous candle, just like we talked about, right? Like this became our lower offer. We can see that very clearly, where our lower offer stepped in, and then we got our lower offer, and then our rotation down into our 100 target, right? Now it's a matter of what do we do from here? Do we hold this 100, which is our 30-second opening range high, or do we start to flip this, where this holds its resistance, right? Our edge here at 100, and then we rotate down to 048.
3-month and 6-month bill auction data.
I am unsure, which again is why
the US looking to sell $82 billion of 3-month bills and $73 billion of 6-month bills. Prior high yield for the 3-month of 4.1%, prior bid cover of 3.07. A 6-month bill high yield prior was 3.915%, prior bid cover 3.36.
But yeah, that's 50 points with a potential for another 50 if we can flip this 100, right? And then we'd be playing down to our opening range low. And if opening range low can go resistance, then we can get even a larger continuation, but we need to see it to believe it. Until then, like, this is where we expect the bid to be. Um, and then we're just watching to see if like lower highs can continue, you know? Were you guys able to follow that sequence, understand like where we were expecting things to happen? That makes sense?
So just keeping an eye on bond yields in general and focusing on US 30-year Treasury yields, climbing on Tuesday to the highest level since mid-July, just shy of about 5%, in line with advances in European and UK bond markets, as investors fear that governments in major economies around the world, including the US, are losing control over their fiscal deficits. By Mr. Go to get the 3-month and 6-month bill auction data. Prior for the 3-month high yield 4.1%, prior bid cover 3.07, and prior high yield for the 6-month bill 3.915%. Prior bid cover was 3.36. Europe Stock 600 index down 1.5%, on track for the biggest daily decline in a month. Surely expecting the 3-month and 6-month bill auction data. US 3-month bill, high yield of 4.045%, and bid cover of 2.96, with US selling 3-month bills at a higher rate, 4.045%, awarding 77.02% of bids at high. So the US selling $82 billion of 3-month bills. 6-month bill, high yield of 3.88% with a bid cover of 2.7. And with a total accepted of $73 billion.
Mhm. This is our attempt for 100 to flip offer. Target below would be 75s and then 50. We're just trading in our opening range. I'm not really looking to do much here. You're just watching to see if the offer can now hold this edge at 100s. You can see that our offer has moved down again off of the new 15s. The same idea as before with our 138, 150 holding offer. We're now watching to see if this POC here at 110 to 120 can hold this offer. Or just a lower move, right? Just a trend continuation down. Just watching this. As long as this is holding, there's a good chance, right, that we can continue downward. So you're just looking for reoffers into this, and then continuation down, this being first target, and then this being second target, if we can hold. And then again, not looking for any potential like expansion until this holds offer below 50, and then we can continue downward. And then downside targets would be probably like 23K flat. This first target makes sense to me. But we got to see it first, right? Until then, like this should be where we're expecting price to kind of just oscillate. But again, like trend is very clear. The thing that I always remind you guys about is like, let's go over what I talked about as soon as I get on them, right? This is super important to build contextual awareness when you're first opening a chart on the day. What was the first thing I did? Well, I talked about how this was potentially our high with us showing VWAP as resistance, right, from earlier in the day. From our Globex session, how we were oscillating this upper balance, right? And then we started to get this like crazy downtrend once we actually flipped and started to offer a VWAP. So sell side started to step in here and build out size on these VWAP retests. We talked about how this was a reversion to that VWAP after going to our lower deviation band. We're rotating back up, showing sell side is still very active at this level, and not looking for any upside until we were able to push over this 260, 287 area, right? This was that VWAP flip if we were going to do it. Now, what are we doing? Well, we noticed that there was a bid that was resting here at this 150, and we were looking for a flip below that for a continuation down. We had marked out that this 180 was our low of balance, this 150 to 180, and that we were looking for a lower high. So the idea is that if sell side was going to be able to hold this, we would hold our lower edge of this potential balance that we were trading in from earlier as offer, which is what we did. We then saw after we tested into that, right, our little block above our value edge here, that we then rotated down. What did we see happen after that? Well, POC shifts below. We hold POC to value high of our previous candle after trapping these buyers up here into 180. We then offer and hold our 150 to 140 area, which is our lower high, starting our big downtrend move after this failure to rotate back above, right? And now we're in a very clear downtrend with us holding POC to value low, which is exactly what we want to see in a trending market down, right? So we have nothing to invalidate yet this downside, because we're very clearly respecting these POC retests on open of new 15s and continuing downward. And we're just doing what we thought we would, which is rotate through our 30-second opening range. Personally, I do not see that downside potential until we can show that interest below these guys and really offer this to the downside, right? This is just expected. This is our secondary target here into our 75 to 50. If we can flip the 75 to 50 and we don't just trap sellers into this low, then we can look for continuation down. But until then, right, like just like we talked about, it's just expecting that this is going to be where we kind of just like oscillate until proven otherwise. I need to see that the people who positioned in the first 30 seconds of the morning, right, our pit traders, our participants who are reloading and reallocating on the larger scale, right? So they're right at open, they're building out positions, they're closing positions, right? They're doing their thing. This is where a lot of volume steps in the first 30 seconds, and it gives us a pretty clear understanding of where we want to go directionally for at least the short to medium term. This is why we play around our 30-second opening range, because of that. We need to see this flip and hold offer for that continued downside. So again, this is a great secondary target where we're trading currently. If trend persists and we continue to hold POC to value high as our resistance, then there's no reason to close fully. Does that make sense? If we're still trending down, then there's no reason to be like, oh, okay, well, why? I don't want you to prematurely expect an end of a rotation, but I do want you to risk off and take some profit. Now it's just a matter of how we build out this area. We know what to look for right side of V. We know what we've been seeing on this shift down. We see that we're holding these POCs as resistance. We're continuing to push down. As long as that's persisting, we have nothing to worry about, right? If we start to see POC holding the low of our candle and then the next candle opens and then we're holding it as supportive, that's a potential shift, right? And then we need to worry about that. But until then, we're just trending down. We're just back to our 30-second opening range. We're doing exactly what we thought we would, and we're continuing to rotate, right? If we start to build below this and we fail to trap sellers down here, and the bid fails to step back up, then, right, like, okay, that's a pretty good sign that we want to continue down, and then you can potentially reload the boat here below our 50 to 75. But I, again, am just risking off my remaining contracts here, and then I'm going to be leaving a little runner into our 50. But if we fail to flip this 50 and hold, then there's no more downside. So again, great target, and that's to be expected. We've done the full rotation, so we've now been able to capture 100 points. And how did we come up with that? Well, it's just our rotation back to our 30-second opening range. That's all it is. So we captured our first 50 points from 50 to 100, and then we noted that if 100 failed to hold, we would flip it as offer, and then we would rotate down to our 050. Yes? And we know that because that's our 30-second opening range. And we know that if our ORH holds as resistance, we should expect a rotation through value, and our value being our ORH to ORL. That's all. So, yep, that's the idea. Now it's just a matter of, can we build below? If so, then we can look for another 50 points, right? 50 to 23K. But if this holds is supportive, then we're going to have to chop here for quite a bit of time. I just don't have the answer for you yet. We have to show that interest first before I can give that idea. We can look for those rotations, but we got to see it first. I'm just going to delete some of this because it's getting a little messy, but I just want to make sure like we're all on the same page. Trying to get into actually holding when I know we're going to do the thing. Yeah. So like, that's why I really try to reiterate, like, has anything changed in the overall structure of why we're trading what we're trading? And it's like I risk off a ton, right? Like I'm more than happy to do that, but I account for it, right? So like I'm then, instead of trading a minis, I then am trading micros. I'm just trading 30 micros instead of 3 minis. If I know that the move has multiple points where I'm unsure if price is going to rotate to, then I'm just risking off into that and then loading the boat as we go down at our key pivots as we're pushing, right? But like I want to give myself more opportunity to risk off as we're pushing down, and so like I will trade micros for those rotations until we have a very clear trend. If we're trending, then I can just kind of like chill in that position and it's whatever. But like the opportunity is much higher for me if I can start to, take off in 2 or 5 lots while trading 30 micros rather than being like, well, I don't know, we didn't get exactly to my PT to the tick, and so now I'm giving back 30 points on this rotation. Like now I'll just risk off 2 to 5 as we go down, and then I feel like I have won, and so I'm less likely to exit fully because I've been taking profit as I go, and then I can leave this runner on and feel comfortable giving back some of this profit because I've already mentally kind of disengaged from the trade. Now it's just about like, is trend continuing? And as long as that's happening, then I'm allowed to just kind of be in these runners without any kind of like consequence. To me, that's what's helpful. I mean, you might be different, but like I have to create systems of cope, right? What's going to keep me in this trade? Well, like I know that if I've been able to take off profit and I've been able to make this trade free, like I'm more likely to sit in this position for the full target because I've already secured gains and I've allowed myself to be in that situation, and now I can have this runner and I can trade this for free. That, to me, that makes more sense. I'm not great at holding full position into target either. I know that about myself, and I would never do that. Like I'm never holding full size for the rotation down. I've given things back way too much. It just doesn't work for me. There's some people who are willing to like hold a position from the highs for multiple days and be like, yeah, this is just my trade. I'm in it forever.
Atlanta
I'm
Fed
not that
GDP
guy.
earnings falling to 3.04% from 3.47%.
But what I will do is be able to give you multiple reoffers, right? Multiple areas to look for potential continuation. And then we can walk through why the trade works and where we're looking and why we're looking in those areas for continuation down. And as long as that's persisting, right? Like we can look for multiple entries into that area and be happy. Mm-hmm. I don't know. Like if I was gonna hold positions full, then I'd be trading options personally. It's just not for me. Like the beauty of futures is that it allows me to exit and open positions with no consequences, primarily, right? Just like a fee. And so like it allows me to be very fluid and very quick with my positioning and my entries and exits, allowing me to really rotate how I want, when I want, take profit off, put profit on, take risk off, right? Etc. And so like I will use that to its full advantage. And if I wanted to like be in a higher time frame positioning, then I would just be in an options play because it has much more limited risk. And futures allows me to scalp with leverage, but I'm not looking to hold higher time frame with futures. It's just not for me. Too much risk. Mm-hmm. And listen, like even with micros, these moves are great. Like 100 to 050 here, even with my lots that I have left on our reload at 100, like we're still up like 300 bones with only 4 lots on micros. Like this is still incredibly profitable even with my runners, you know? And we've been able to fully take advantage of this move with our us loading fully into 180 to 150 with 30 lots, taking off profit into 125, and then taking off profit into 100, and then adding at 100s for a rotation down to 050. There's us. And again, this is full target into 050. So our 30-second opening range low. Expected a little bit of a bid here. If we can flip it, amazing. If not, it is what it is. Bid resting at 040. See if they trap there, or if we can hold this as offer on flip. I expect this area to need a bit to work through, unless they're just going to immediately sweep this thing down, which would be okay. But I'm not expecting it, really. We'll see. I expect we're gonna need a better retest here. This is where I would say that this is like where sell side is going to have to really show their hand. And as long as, let's say, we're holding ETH low, so like this 50 to 60, then we're okay. So we'll look for reoffers here. And as long as that's holding, we can look for this rotation down to 23K. But if they fail here, it's going to be a very similar setup to what we were looking at 150, where we're going to be watching this as a potential supportive move, and then we'll have to rotate up first before we can continue down, right? Potential trap. So I want to make sure that sell side is now defending this edge at this 150, this 050 to 060. As long as they're doing that, then we have another 50-point move on our hands to our 23K target. And then if 23K goes offer, right, then we'll be looking for ADR low into our like 950. But we got to see it to believe it here. I think that there's a lot of potential to trap as ES is pushing down into ADR, into our target here at 370. It's going to have to be a waiting game. Things that I'm concerned about. Russell into our 30-second opening range low as well. Our day open, right? We need to flip that for me to care about continuation down as well, so that all of our moves are following the same logic. Or there's a lot of potential that we rotate up first and then have to continue down afterwards. So again, just keeping an eye on this. Only in runners. I haven't reloaded yet. I think that we have a stronger reoffer on our hand. But if we don't, right, I'm still positioned for another 50 points down. I just would like to be able to reload into 50 to 60 if Russell finds a bid here at day open. What's up? Right, so like this is what I have positioning on right now, what I'm watching for. Is I've got some size reloaded potentially here to get back in. I have my runners still from 100 from our reoffer where we took profit at 100s from our leg up, right? And then when we flipped where I took profit from our 30-second opening range, I am then playing this rotation down to our 50. And now I'm watching to see from our 50 if this offers into here. We reload this position, and then our target is still just this 23K down below, right? So just this is, I want to just like reiterate, I have positioning waiting here on a retest into this area. I understand that if this offer can hold, we want to be loading the boat again here with this value shift, right? This is our value low, this is our value high. We expect either rotations to occur through this area, or this then holds as offer where we're flipping where we took profit into our 50, and then we're looking for that rotation down to 23K, right? So my positioning is also set up for that. Again, I have runners on from 100, but I'd like to add more to that positioning. So if we can do that, amazing. If not, then I'm still positioned for the downside leg, and then I won't be looking to reload. If this 50 to 60 area fails to hold offer, right, and we pop back above ETH low and that goes supportive, I need to be worried for a potential rotation back up to 100s, right? So I don't want to be overly positioned here, but I do want to make sure that our offer, if our offer is here and we do hold this edge as resistance, that I have a bit of more loaded, right? So I'm moving my average from 100, and my average will move down to like 80 to 90. So we're watching this retest of our edge. Again, we know that there's a potential trap here. We know that. This is our look below. So now it's a matter of, do we flip this as supportive and then rotate back up through this, doing our same thing that we did here at our 50 to 80, right? Our look below. What do we need to do? Well, we had to come up and retest our seller first before we could go down, and then we got a really nice reoffer of this area. So we can expect a potential of the same logic that happened on our first leg of this move here, right? Our look below, our hold, our reoffer, and then a continuation down. So this is potentially the same thing where we're watching this 50 to 60. If this can hold offer, amazing, right? Like that's very bearish. We can go down then. But if this fails, then we might need to rotate back up into these highs before we can continue down. So I just got filled into our 50 to 60, like I just showed you, and that was all done with limits, and we're immediately rotating down off of it. So I can take profit here and scale out a bit without a need for a breakdown and still be profitable on this trade. And now we have runners in from our 50 to 60. Wait, actually, can I control Z this enough where that that image comes back? There we go. This is what our setup was. This is what we just filled on. Crazy when we know structurally what we're going to do, right? So I'm added into shorts, our limits get filled, we take profit in the same area we took profit last, and now my average has moved to 50 to 60. Yes? And so I don't even need the full breakdown for that continuation. And we've already risked off, so now this trade is free. Nah, my invalidation is still over 60. Because this trade's already free, so I can risk some. So our stop is just sitting over these wick highs here.
ECB's Muller says it makes sense to hold rates and watch the economy.
So if like this 50 now holds as supportive, we could rotate back up to ORH, right? So we're just watching now. We need to get back below 50 just like we did on that previous rotation, or we trap below. Again, I've already risked off this re-entry at 50 to 60. I'm stopped out over 67 on my remaining contracts here because I'm going to be looking for a higher rotation back into this imbalance above, right? So I don't want to be positioned here if this now holds as supportive because I can get a much better offer here into these highs, and then we're just going to be looking for this offer below, trapping this liquidity. Right now, it's a battle between offside sellers and offside buyers above, right? It's just it's a battle of our 30-second opening range. We need to see this shift below our 30-second opening range for me to believe that we have more expansion potential. So it's just a waiting game. All right, my bad. I'm sick again. If you reload and your average moves to 80s, where would you stop being? Okay, yeah, I already answered that. Yeah, so because I took off my size at 100s on that like down, my average is now at this pivot, right? So my trade's like basically break even right now. Yeah. If 50s hold is supportive, like we go up first before we go down. And that's fine, right? Like it's the same, it's the literal same trade as what happened at 150. And again, what was our reasoning for potentially seeing someone get trapped? Well, Russell is at a day open, right? So we're doing our Russell rotation, and NQ is just chopping around at our value low or our 30-second opening range low while we're doing that maneuver. So we expected a bit of a bid to happen because Russell was at that pivot level and ES was at ADR, right? Like we hit targets. So it makes sense to see a bit of relief because we expect relief at these edges on ES and RTY, right? If we expect relief here, then like we have to anticipate that there's going to be some sort of reaction on NQ with that move, unless things are completely disconnected from the market. And we haven't seen that so far today, right? We've seen very clear confluence across our markets, rather than any sort of like diverging thing that's causing huge moves in one indice while the others are remaining, neutral or positive. So because everything has like a decent amount of confluence, we can trade off of key pivots off of each other and look for those areas as potential relief and like where to expect those jumps to occur. All right, let's see if this look below 50s can actually hold and sustain, or if there's nothing here yet. So again, just a waiting game. As long as Russell and ES are remaining here, it's going to be very hard for NQ to get this downside leg. 50 is trying to flip bid still. It is a two-sided auction. It is what it is. We're watching to see what happens. We're stuck currently between the sell side POC from this candle, right, into our 60, 67 area, and this now buyer down here into 30s. So it is just a waiting game to see which way we're going to go. Right now, it looks like the bid has a bit more control. We need to see that offer flip and push below before we get a opportunity to really continue this move down. Again, Russell held our 30-second opening range low into our day open, and it is still maintaining these higher lows. It is going to be very tough for NQ to get any follow through until we see RTY cease this upside leg. Same thing with ES, right? As long as we're holding our ADR low, we expect rotations to kind of just occur between this LVN here on our pivot and this low. So what we can watch for is what happens as we push back up into these highs, right? If this offer holds here, and then we then can rotate down through this. I am stopped here at 67s, and I will look to reload if we go higher or if we flip back below 50s and offer. But my runners are now stopped out. I will wait. We have 50 seconds until new 15s. So hopefully we get a decision then. This could either be the start of a right side of V, or this could be our top, and then I will look to reload back below 50 to 60, right? I mean, it is what it is. We just got to wait it out. But what we have now is a lot more information that we've built out the structure. If Russell starts to show that weakness, if ES starts to show this weakness into these highs, then we can look for this downside leg back down to our balance low, right? Which our balance low would be this yellow box down here. So we're just waiting to see what happens, but we have to be very respectful that there is now a buyer sitting here at 50, right? So I have to wait to see if we're either looking back above, trapping buyers above, and then rotating down, offering, or if we're now holding this low and we're going to rotate back up. I don't have that answer yet, but we'll have a much better understanding of which way we're going now that new 15s have opened, right? Just like we were looking for trend to continue down, we now have a very clear pivot here with POC to value low holding a supportive. So where do we need to flip? Well, we need to flip below this, right? So all we have to do is mark this, and this is now our pivot. And I will wait. And a very clear flip and look back below this, holding POC to value low is our offer, or rotating back up through our range that we have already marked, right? Like, it is what it is. This is why we've taken off most of our risk. We tried to add, it didn't work. We took off some size, and now it's a waiting game. Now we see what happens. But as long as Russell and ES are continuing to push, it's going to be very hard for NQ to get continued downside. Nice, good job.
ECB's Muller says it makes sense to hold rates and watch the economy. Speaking to CNBC.
Again, I have no position. I am waiting. If this is going to go up, we'll have plenty of opportunities. If this is going to fail, we'll have plenty of opportunities. I don't need to trade this range that we've already played on the short side. I just don't. We look back below 50s and offer, we'll have a really great short. If we hold 50 to 60 now as supportive, we can look to play that up. But right now, I'm just looking at this as balance while we wait for a decision to be made on ES and RTY. We know that ES has a offer here into our stacked imbalance, right? The supply here into 83, 84. We know that NQ has an offer here at 75. We're watching to see if sell side's able to load the boat here. And then again, if we can hold this, I will be looking for that offer back below 50s for a re-entry. But I have no business trying to play here right now on the short side for me personally. And the reason again for that is that POC is below us. So I'm not interested. It just looks like either chop or the start of a right side of V. So my opportunity is super limited right now. I don't do anything with Elliott Wave. I can't speak for Tom.
So NVIDIA rejects rumors of H100, H200 GPU shortages. So the headline of NVIDIA saying we've seen erroneous chatter in the media claiming that NVIDIA is supply constrained and sold out of H100, H200. As we noted at earnings, our cloud partners can rent every H100, H200 they have online, but that doesn't mean we're unable to fulfill new orders. We have more than enough of those to satisfy every order without delay. The rumor that H20 reduced our supply of either H100, H200, or Blackwell is also categorically false. Selling H20 has no impact on our ability to supply other NVIDIA products.
No change yet. Still just holding our POC to value low. Previous candle offer holding above at the 75.85. I'm again not interested for shorts yet. Just expecting chop until we decide on a direction here. Need to see a very clear look back below 50s for me to consider shorting, or uptrend could potentially be starting. Which strategy are you using? I'm following your logic, but I'm not quite sure what specific strat you're using, basing your own strategy off of. I mean, my own, but I follow the principles of auction market theory. I trade mostly based off of order flow and volume profile.
Good morning, everybody.
Yo.
Hello. Everybody have a good weekend. Same, and it was kind of nice, to be honest. I'll be interested to see if we just auction this lower node all afternoon. I sure hope not.
All right. I will be right back.
Enjoy. Yes, testing edge here. NQ as well. Is liquidity here. That's like 84 to 85 on ES on the offer. Pick through liquidity, NQ into daily open here. ES obviously into node structure above. Bid is stepping up into 85 where it took through.
So just keeping an eye on how the markets are performing. The S&P 500 tech sector is on course for one of its worst days since April, down more than 2%, led by Nvidia, Microsoft, and Apple. So Nvidia is now down almost 7% in 2 sessions, its steepest 2-day sell-off in more than 5 months, after its quarterly earnings showed restrictions on sales to China eating into revenue to the tune of about $4 billion, and uncertainty about when those sales could resume. The chip maker is close to oversold on a 9-day relative strength index for the first time since early April. Fed bids for 52-week bills total $1 billion.
Two-sided takes there in ES.
Okay.
Peaked up.
Yeah, just following our pathing. Watching our 100 now, seeing if we flip this 30-second opening range high or if this holds offer. If we can flip it and make it supportive, then we rotate back up to like 150. If this holds offer, no change in our pathing. So just waiting. My bad, Bayu. I was not at my PC. Let me catch up on what you said in chat. Oh, amazing.
Ten minutes away from the top of the hour, we get the 52-week bill auction data, with the US looking to sell $50 billion of 52-week bills, with a prior high yield of 3.76%, prior bid cover of 2.85.
RTY is still holding our opening range high as supportive, continuing our upside push. Need to show interest over 42s for me to really care about this, but this is our first look over 100s. If 100s can bid and hold, I'll just be looking for 140, 150 for upside rotation. So super important that we see this look above hold if we're going to do this move. Again, 342 on Russell and ES here at this 100 edge, just watching to see if this can hold supportive now. If we can, we'll be watching for a rotation just to our view up and into our offer here into 140, 150. So let's see what we can do here.
The US holds back China trade threats as it weighs Russia's sanctions. There's further detail into this, then the US has held back from imposing secondary sanctions on China over its support for Russia's war in Ukraine because broader trade negotiations are continuing. That's according to the US's envoy to NATO speaking on Tuesday. As a reminder, then, Trump has threatened to slap sanctions on buyers of Russian oil unless an agreement between Kiev and Moscow can be reached to end the conflict that's now well into its fourth year. So far, the White House has only imposed the tariffs on India over its purchases of Russian crude, but not China. Less than 5 minutes ago, to get the 52-week bill auction data, prior high yield of 3.76%.
At 1/3 here from our hold of 100. Looking for, again, 40 to 50 on secondary leg if we can get it. Remember, we took profit at 25s on the way down here. So I'm taking profit at 25s on the way up here. Remember, our targets were 150, and then we shorted 150, and then we took profit at 125, and then 100, and then 50, right? So we're doing the exact opposite on the way up.
ES has liquidity resting at 95, just middle of this node we're looking into. Same idea as the 50, structurally. Enjoy, my friend.
There's, you know,
Surely expecting the 52-week bill auction data. high rate of 3.660%, with the US selling the high again 1 year 52-week bills high rate 3.66%, wanting 2.18%, 2.81% bids are high, bid cover 3.82.
All right, and there's our push into target from our hold of 100s on the flip.
And the US the US
40 to
selling
50.
$50 billion of 52-week bills.
We tagged the 95 on ES. You had a seller step into 98 as well. Makes sense, just an edge.
It is our 30-second ORM at 394 on ES. As well as our POC shift there, so it's a great target. We can flip over at 399, we can go up. If not, then nothing really here. I would say that we've got at least one more leg up, potentially, if Russell's going to go for that VWAP at 348. Just looking for a flag to form here, ideally. I've risked off 2/3 of my position here from 100s. Not looking to add until we can flip back above our key pivot here, where we took our original short at 150. So this, again, is what we've done today. We played the short at 150, played that down to our 100 level, took profit at 125, 100, and then we reloaded our short at 100s on the flip, played that down to our 50 target. We then played a little bit lower into our 30s, took profit there, tried to reload our short, right? We tried to average down here at our 50 to 60. We stopped out at 67. I then didn't take a play as we were rotating in between our 100 and our 50. We talked about this being a potential right side of V. We waited for the flip back over 100. 100, we played that back up to our 40 to 50 for the reversion trade. We have now taken most of our profit off from 40 to 50, and we're now watching to see what happens here. If 100s hold, sure, we can keep going up. I'd like to see this flip back over our 50s and then recover 80s for continuation up, or we expect this to kind of just rotate in between here. Again, not looking for continuation down until we see this 50 edge hold offer, right? Look below and then hold this. And I'm not looking for any expansion until we can get above this 180 and show that interest above. Just kind of expect balance in between here until proven otherwise. So we'll see. But we've now successfully captured 100 points on the downside and 50 points on the upside. I guess that's not true. 40 points on the upside so far, but we'll see. I think 50 is likely. Trump supposedly has a press conference at 2. So we'll see. That's in an hour. What's up, club? I will most likely be turning the stream off before the Trump conference. I can't be bothered to trade that. But so far, a really solid day. If you're in profit for a trade when you're bringing your stop down, is it just based off of points or like key areas on the move up or down? Key areas. I don't trade off of like a point risk. Once I'm profitable, it's just like either the trade invalidates or it doesn't. Most of the times, that's like 90%. Because you have to remember, club, that I secure profits as we go up. Right? Like I take off risk. So at that point, like my runners, it's just a flat invalidation. I'm more than happy to just kind of like let it give it back. Unless I think that something's going to shift. Like if so like for example, if this 140, 150 just holds and we rotate below 100s, that kind of invalidates that we're just balanced here, right? And so if we like break below, let's say like 125 here, a lot of the times I'll close at 125 and it won't be a stop close, it'll just be a manual close, because I know that if we're not holding, let's say the halfway back of this move, that the move has probably lost most of its steam, right? So if we're not holding here at this like 120, 125, then there's no reason to stay in that trade because I know it's just going to come back to my original entry at 100. Right? Like if we can't even hold like the mid of this move, right, where the secondary buyer stepped in, I don't have a lot of confidence that we aren't just going to do the full rotation back down to my original entry. So why give up 20 points of profit if we don't show that interested participant here at the mid, right? So it's like more of a structural thing. So if we like continue to hold this upper node that we're developing out, awesome, right? So if I see that bid step in here, I'll hold. But if I like see a complete lack of bid here at 120 to 125, then I fully expect that this LVN here is filled and we just come back to my original entry. And it's like, okay, well, I might as well just reload there then instead of giving back 20 points. Does that make sense? But like you have to remember that like, again, like I take profit on the way up. Like we hit target. So I'm mostly risked off here. So if like I think that there's potential for expansion, I will leave a break-even trade. But if I think that we're in more of a rotational balance, then there's no reason to have a break-even stop because I expect us to basically come back down to my average while we wait. You get me? So it depends, like, are we in balance or are we in trend? And where is that shift? Where does that shift occur? Right, like if this bid isn't here and we flip offer, like it's very clear that this edge is going to become our resistance, and then we're just rotating right back down to my original entry. So like, is there a point in me staying in this trade if I know that we're just going to give back these 20 points here, filling this LVN? Not really. So like logically, it makes more sense to close and then just look for a re-entry while we wait. You get me? Yeah. So it's mostly like structure based. And then it's just like basic logic of like, does it make sense to find a bid here or not? And like, where am I looking for that to be if we're going to continue up? Because like when we're in very clear rotations and we're just like in this upper node, it's like, oh, okay, well, either this flips back to offer and then we play the same short again down, or we're just expecting our bid to be in the exact same area, right, where this secondary buyer stepped in, and then we're just looking for rotations back.
I think a lot of like kind of that feeling good as well is once you progress as a trader and start to actually trust your system, then the point loss becomes less negligible because it's much more like of a robotic thing. And once you kind of like get over that cusp, it should feel better and make more sense. You know, just like screaming for points because they're points. It's like actually a reason why you're doing actions.
Mentally, I still need to work on not closing my trades early because then my losses overtake my wins. Part of it is not looking at P&L and only looking at my targets. Yeah, sure. I get that. I think when you trade, do you use the profit and loss tool, like marking out your areas of risk and like where you're looking for? Like, do you use something like this of like what your expectations are and what your risk is? I don't. Yeah, you should use that more because that'll keep you. Yeah, I think it's like more of a psychological tool just to show you like, okay, like this is my risk to reward. This is why this trade makes sense, and we haven't invalidated it, and we pushed into target. And like trading here makes the most sense to me because I know that structurally we have an imbalance here and I'm looking for that to be filled, and it's a rotation back up into this original target at 140, 150.
Surely expecting the result.
Like, okay, this is a 5-to-1 risk to reward. This makes sense for me to hold runners and look for that trade to happen. I think using tools like this can help you stay in. But again, like I don't think there's anything wrong with taking risk off as you're pushing into a target, especially if something invalidates or we slow down. Like a lost momentum is a variable that you need to pay attention to. But like if you're just taking profit to take profit because your last trade was negative and now you're scared, like that's where it becomes an issue, right? Like if you're not managing your losses and cutting when you're supposed to and you're letting those bleed you, you're going to be much more inclined to take profits early because your last trades hurt your mental, right? Like you took like an emotional and mental L by not stopping out.
17 counterparties,
and now you're trying to make up for that.
$21.066 billion at the Fed Reverse Repo Operation.
And now just trying to get back to more of like a break-even state, right? You're no longer being mechanical about your setups and your trades that you're taking. You're now trading emotionally based off of trying to make up for your missing P&L, right? But like a lot of that stems from taking emotional stops on your losses and not just like letting the thing play. I have been there as well where like say you move your stop down or something, or you get stopped out a couple times looking for an entry, and now you've been able to capture 5 or 10 points on the upside, but your target is 50 points up, but you've taken off too much risk from on the first pop, right? And now you don't have enough of that trade left to like recover. And that's, I think a lot of that just gets fixed with becoming more and more trusting in your setups and like what your risk is and being really strict with your stops, right? Like it's like if you know that like a value trade, right? Like this value edge at 100s, like if this fails, like we'll rotate back down. But if we succeed here, it's a 50 points up. So like the risk to reward makes a ton of sense to try to play that. I mean, we're basically risking 5 points there to make 50. That's an amazing risk to reward as long as you're respecting your stop at the low, right? We never see an invalidation there. And so like that stick in, right? Like there's no reason not to. But like if you
The Fed reverse repo facility uses $21.07 billion, the lowest since 2021.
But if you are either like mismanaging your trades, or if you're trading like minis instead of micros, and now you've like risked off fully, where you're taking, let's say, okay, let me give an example. So let's say you take this 100 and you traded a mini here and you only got in one contract. Your first risk off is into 25. Now you have potential for FOMO, right? Because the full rotation we were expecting was into 140, 150. So you've taken off at 25, and now you're trying to build an average now because you've taken profit on your one contract. You're out of this trade. So now your risk has changed. So instead of it being this like 5 points of risk here that we were playing around at 100s for this rotation up, your risk is now this. It's this. It's the same risk where this is still our invalidation, but now you're participating at the middle of the range. So your reward is, what's going on? Where's my, oh, there we go. So it's still the same target, but now your risk is here, right? So now it's almost a 1-to-1 instead of a 5-to-1, because you're now taking an entry at the middle, right? So now you have a lot of FOMO because you're like, directionally, I don't know what to do because I've taken my full risk off. So instead of trading a mini, right, trade 10 micros and then take off half, 5 contracts here in the mid, and then look for runners into our high. Because your risk to reward now changes because you're participating in the middle of this range and you're trying to get back in, and it just feels terrible because it could be choppy here. You don't have an understanding, right? We want to be trading at our edges, and we want to be trading a size that makes sense for our account and allows us to scale out and in. So again, if you're like a 1 or 2 lot trader of minis, like try trading micros. 10 micros is 1 mini, right? And if that's too much, right? Trade 5 micros and then scale out in sets of 1, allowing you to take off some risk. But like be smart about it, right? Like scale out at key levels and give yourself areas where you're now looking for specific things, right? Like we were looking at this 2025 here as our stop, because we knew that if 2025 didn't find that bid, let me mark that here. If this 2025 didn't hold, that it would be very likely that we did our full rotation down, right? So now this is our pivot here in our mid, where it's like, okay, if this buyer doesn't step in here and hold, we expect this to now be where that offer is sitting. So this then becomes your first risk off after our low. And now we're watching to see if this can now flip as supportive again for upside. But like this has to be your first risk off now in the middle of our range. I don't know. Hopefully I'm making sense. We had a decent conversation about this earlier in the session. But like this is why I'm so this is why I talk about our edges so much, because you have the best risk to reward than trying to transact in the middle of our range. Because now all of a sudden you have 25 points of downside potential and only 25 points of upside. So now you have like a 1-to-1 trade, and I'm not usually a big fan of that. I'd want to make my validation and my entry as close as possible, right? Because I want to be either immediately right or immediately wrong, so I can stop out and then reevaluate. The worst thing that can happen is I buy the mid and then we chop there for 30 minutes and I don't make any money and I'm just offside, right? Like I'm just flat while we wait for a reaction. And then after 30 minutes, I give it all back because I've been emotionally damaged by trading the mid, and I get stopped out, and then fees ruin me on that transaction, right? Like I'm negative after waiting 30 minutes in the chop. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you can take 3 off, you can take 2 off, it doesn't matter. Just whatever you want. Like what I usually do or try to do is whatever my max lots I'm trading at that time is to try to make the trade. My first objective is always to take off profit to cover my stop. If let's say my stop is 5 points here and I'm trading 10 lots, I want to be able to cover stopping out for the 5 points below. I always choose the wrong one. Right, so my first goal is always going to be covering my potential stop out on my runners. I want to make this trade free as soon as possible. So I'm taking profits here to cover for the loss down here, potentially. Right, so whatever that is for you, with fees plus being stopped out of this position, if you were going to be, I usually try to cover this and then allow that trade to then run. Because once I'm neutral, my mental is a lot clearer. And if I can take off more lots than just being neutral, and I can be positive on this trade, then I'm much more likely to hold for the full move up to target. So again, it's really about like what you are willing to do and how you handle things, right? Like some people, again, I was talking about this earlier, are more than willing to just hold futures contracts multiple days from their pivot and trade that. I'm more of a play structure to structure and then reevaluate kind of guy. I can't hold contracts overnight. I'm not doing it unless something crazy happens and I'm in this average that's like 1,000 points away, right? Like I'm not holding. I am playing from pivot to pivot and I will be taking profit because that's what works for me. But like you mentally might be different, right? You might be okay staying in positions on a longer term. And then, but like that's something that you need to know about yourself. Do what works for you and what's going to allow you to succeed, right? Like if another trader you're following, again, is holding for multiple days in a row, but that's going to cause you to have a heart attack and not be able to sleep, that's going to affect your mental, and that's not a good trading strategy that works for you. If playing structure to structure makes more sense to you and allows you to have some peace of mind once you close a trade and then you just look for another trade, then you should be following that idea, right? Do what works for you and what you're going to be able to handle. There's so many ways to make money. But the first step is always going to be doing what you're comfortable with and fits within your risk profile. So there's your full rotation from 100s back up to 150. Let's see if this 150 can flip. This is our 30-second opening range here on ES into our 399. Again, I'm very worried that Russell's going to hit this VWAP into 347, 348, and then that's going to mark the high. So I'm watching NQ into 165 to 180 for a potential offer as Russell hits VWAP. Again, like this is where I'm going to be watching to see if sell side absorbs, and then we flip back below 150 for this rotation. Or if we can flip this 180, 165, hold that as supportive, and also see Russell show interest over our VWAP here. If we can do that, then we can go up. If this holds its offer, then I don't think that there's been a dramatic change yet in anything that we've done today. Right, it's the same pivots. So let's watch this 165, 180, see if offer holds there, or if we flip it as supportive with Russell also holding VWAP as supportive. Again, like the area that we are playing off of is where we took our short on this leg down, right? What did we see happen on the last attempt? Well, we looked below 150, trapped sellers, rotated up into this 180, saw that offer then step down, and then we flipped this as our pivot at our 150, and then did a large rotation down off of that. So again, we need to push over this 180 and show it as supportive with an actual hold for me to care, or I expect the same kind of action to happen again, where this 180 holds offer, and then we see that seller step in at 165 and then 150 on the way back down. I think this will be pretty telling with what happens with Russell into VWAP, which way we go.
Perfect Roto. Value high here, yes. And you keep basically testing an edge.
All right, this is RTY into VWAP. Let's see what happens. Again, watching this 65 to 180 on NQ, just seeing if we can look above and hold, or if this is going to absorb here, and then we look back through.
To ES liquidity pockets here are 0.5 on the bid and 10 on the offer.
Just risked off a couple contracts here from 180, looking to see if we can flip over our 210, 226 from earlier. Remember, our 15-minute VWAP is sitting at this 230. Need to see us push above that for more.
Yes, take of 10 liquidity there. Bid still hanging out 0.5.
We'll see if we can break over. If we can show interest over this 230, I think we can keep going up, but I think we're going to need to work here a little bit. I've taken off 2/3 of my risk. I'm probably done for the day. Got some stuff I need to do, and it's 140. Trump gets on at 2. Remember that? So we'll see. I think you can probably see 415 if 410, 40, yeah, 410s hold on ES. One leg up, and if 415s go supportive, then you should be able to trade the ADR into 424. But we'll see. This was our mid of our balance from the morning session on NQ. So again, like if we can flip this I think upside feels likely to rotate up into 260 to 290, but if this holds, then you're just looking for a potential offer to be here and then a rotation back to our 180. I don't know, we'll see. Our 15-minute VWAP from Globex has just been holding as resistance all day, so that needs to very clearly flip for us to care. And again, that's just like our pivot here at this 210, 230 on NQ. All right, tell me the story, and then I'm gonna head out. What's up?
Oh, that's a bold move.
We got the same trade. Can you imagine that me narrating my trade got you a similar trade?
$20 seconds here in new 15s.
I don't know, man. Maybe it's clicking. Maybe you do know. You know?
True.
Just watch your POCs from previous candles here. NQ and ES can hold them on retests. You're in a pretty good spot. If not, then we know what to expect. Again, just watch. Are we retest into these? Can this hold supportive and then pop up from here, holding POC and then looking over? Or is this going to offer on a look below and then rotate back down to our 180? Unsure. What's up? Want to see Bad Bunny next week? Rory probably does. I know he likes him. I don't know if I can name a single Bad Bunny song. He like trades the open and then sometimes a little bit of the close. So you probably miss him because you are trading the mid of the day.
I can be Rory for a second.
All right, but again, that was probably my last trade. Again, if we can hold our VWAPs as supportive, like ES is attempting to do, and if NQ can flip this 210, 230 area, should be able to continue to see upside. Again, remember Trump is supposed to start talking in 10 minutes at 2. I don't know if he's ever been on time, so that might be later, but I'm not really looking to sit around here for that. But some really solid rotations today. Only stopped out one trade so far when we tried to offer down here at our 50 to 60. Again, just flipped at our 100, played that up to 140, 150, and then played our 180 flip into our 210, 230 here. If this can flip, then you get another leg up, and we have that marked. Target would be 260 to 290. So far, holding POCs is supportive on both ES and NQ. So as long as that's maintaining and we're not offering the previous candle's POC, trend is continuing, right? But yeah, good luck. And goodbye.
Peace out.
Peace.